Welcome back, everyone, to the Rooted Lifestyle Podcast. We are your hosts, Camryn and Justus Woods.
Yeah, welcome back, you guys. Thank you for tuning in for another week. We just want to thank all of our listeners on Spotify. We're almost at 150 on YouTube, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
So thank you guys so much for all of your support. We absolutely love getting on here every other week and just feel like we're hanging out with each other and our best friends.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And I mean, we've gotten even some messages from people who have been like, we see you, we're supporting you. And, I listened to all your episodes and it's actually really cool to kind of see the impact that we've been making. So
it is cool. We had one girl reach out and just be like, just so you know, I listen to every single week and you guys are making a difference. Like, I listen to everything you say. I take it to heart. Like, I'm learning so much. And we're like, wow, that's why we do this.
Exactly.
It's so fun for us.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Yeah. So this week we're going to be talking about something that's a little bit controversial.
Yes,
which
it can
is
be.
Finances in marriage.
Whoop, whoop.
Now, I want to caveat this conversation by saying that we have our own way of doing things, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like the only way to do things.
Right. It doesn't mean it's the perfectly right way.
Exactly.
It's just how we have felt peace about it and how we do it.
Exactly. And it's just the way that we've done it based upon, what we believe, what the Bible says, and kind of how we've been raised. And that's kind of informed the way that we choose to see finances.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of a vulnerable topic of conversation, but we're willing to be open and honest with you guys. We have absolutely nothing to hide, and we're just hoping that this can open up the floor for more people our age and just trying to figure out marriage and finances. We definitely don't have it all figured out.
So we're going to tell you exactly how much money we have in each account, how much we spend.
Because I couldn't even tell you that. I could find out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. You're the guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so let's just get right into it. So as Justus said, like, we base everything that we do financially off of two things. The first thing is the Bible. So like, what does the word say? What does Bible say? What does Bible say? Oh gosh. What does God say?
What does Bible say?
How does he kind of like, what is his perfect creation and picture of that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? How can we emulate that? And then the second thing that we realized is the way that we do our finances would be our upbringing, which is kind of cool.
So like what we've been modeled
What's been modeled for us,
from our parents and kind of the way that we've grown up. And I mean, that's with everyone. I feel like that's how they've shaped their view of just money in general, not just like how you manage your finances, but money in general.
Yeah.
But we can start with the Bible
for sure.
First. So this is a pretty common verse, Matthew 19:5. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So that portion in the end, the two will become one flesh, is something that I feel like that we take very seriously, and we apply it to every part of our life. Two become one, meaning, like obviously living together, become one, obviously, like sharing everything together,
right?
Secrets, sharing. This can go into like when we're talking about finances and stuff as well, like, even debt.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Like, people take on other people's student debt. So it's like, it's a lot of things, and we mean it to be like all encompassing, and we take it very seriously. So when we're talking about it in the context of finances, for us, that means, joint bank accounts.
Yeah.
That means everything that we do together financially, we make those decisions together because it's us doing it, and it's not just me doing something or just you doing something, but it's us walking through it together.
Right. So one little thing that I just thought about right before we got married, I think this was the month leading up to our marriage or our wedding. And I'll be honest with you guys, I have worked here and there growing up, but it was never like every summer I'm working a lot, this and that, whatever. And so I had about maybe $3,000 to $4,000 just like of my own money that I've saved or whatever. And so I remember texting Justus and being like, hey, here are two options. I can come into this wedding with this marriage with $3,000 to $4,000, or I could buy us first class tickets for our honeymoon, and I'm going to buy this camera that we're actually currently using right now. So I came into this marriage with exactly $1,000, which is insane.
I thought it was less because the ticket prices plus the camera was like nothing. I mean,
well, the tickets were $2,000, and then my camera was $1,200.
So yeah, you said you came in with $3 to $4 grand. That was,
It's about $1,000. I came in with about $1,000.
Okay. So she came in with about $1,000.
It's so embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Okay. Anyways, but that's just a funny joke. So even then we weren't even married yet, but that was the goal.
Yeah.
So we made that decision together.
Exactly.
You were like, follow your dreams. I think you should do this. I think it'd be fun. Like get that camera.
And look at this. We're using the camera right now. We use the camera all the time. I've been using the camera like honestly more than you have maybe.
For sure.
So,
wow. Justus is getting work emails on the side. Ignore that, everybody. It's like you're here with us. We love it.
Exactly.
So we do know a lot of married couples that are some of our best friends who do not have joint bank accounts. And that is totally fine. We live in a world where people just do things differently. They have different beliefs. God's telling them different things, or they don't have a religious belief. So like tons of different options, especially when it comes to marriage.
And I can see from a perspective of, not even though I know we have Christian friends who have separate bank accounts and they have separate reason. I can see a reason for that, but I'm just going to say it from the other perspective. I can see
from a worldly
perspective how having separate bank accounts makes sense.
For sure. And I think that it's so sad, but a lot of people go into marriage being like, okay, I need to protect myself. Full transparency, if I didn't have a religious Christian worldview, I might be like, Justus could leave me at any time and take all of his money with him. So I need to save up my own money, make it separate from him so I know I can fend for myself.
Or I could be like, we should sign a prenup before we get married because I want to keep everything.
Yeah. If something goes wrong.
I don't want you to have anything if something goes wrong. So
people truly go into marriage being like, okay, so when it goes bad, this is my backup. And I'm like, oh, that absolutely breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So anyways, needless to say, we have a joint bank account and we do that for a lot of reasons, but it really teaches us a lot about each other. I think one of the biggest things that it teaches us would be sacrificing.
A lot of sacrificing. Just because we both came into this marriage with different priorities in a sense. I think that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do feel this sense of responsibility of like being the leader of our household. Yeah.
So you want to make sure we live in a nice place. You want to make sure that we're fed well. You want to make sure that we're doing fun things. Like you have a little bit of different priorities than I do, but it's really cool that we can sacrifice those to one another and be like, okay, because I love you, let's do what you want to do. Let's spend more money on rent so you're comfortable. And there's just a lot. We'll get into like the nitty gritty of that, but it really has allowed us to practice serving one another and just having open and honest conversation of two people truly becoming one in the eyes of God, because no decision is our own. Like we're making it together and pursuing Christian counsel and asking the Lord to reveal a lot to us. So it's actually been really cool.
Yeah. One of the things that I remembered was that we did we did 2 premarital counselings before we got married. One of them, we actually had to do like a budget sheet together, like separately, and then like come together and like talk about it. And those were like the early, learnings that we had of each other of like how we viewed money. Because obviously when you're dating, you talk about money, like one person pays, another person pays time, but you never really talk about.
I don't know why you're saying one person. You were always the one paying.
Yeah,
Such a gentleman.
The couple times that you paid, but I'm just saying like the you don't have to think about like, okay, how do you save? How do you invest? Like all these other things that you need to eventually end up learning to know how to do together, because we feel like it's not a matter of like your money versus my money.
Yeah.
It's a matter of like, how are we going to decide to do this? Like, are we going to go, or are we going to spend our money to like get your nails done? Are we going to spend our money to like, for me to go on a trip with my friends? And it's like, that's how we have to have those transparent conversations. And honestly, it helps teach with like communication and all those things
for sure,
to help you articulate and to be able to communicate what you want at that time. So it's been, I think, super helpful to have this, because we've been able to have those like hard conversations and have that conflict, but also ultimately come to a resolution.
For sure. And I think one quick thing on that is it allows us to talk a lot about expectation of like, if one of my friends, so like, for example, one of my friends texted me a couple months back and was like, I would love nothing more than to go to New York for my birthday in November. And she knew that like I would want to save up for that. She knows I want to go. I want to celebrate her. And so I came to Justus immediately and I was like, hey, this is really, really important to me. I would like to put aside money and save up for this trip, because we have so much time in advance. We can save up for it. And like that might mean Justus sacrificing a weekend away with his friends so that I can go with mine, or sacrificing a date night out and we just have it in because we want to save up this money for me. Just like I'm truly the only one getting a benefit out of that. But you are sacrificing that money and you're serving me by allowing me and financially supporting me to be able to go.
Yeah, no, and that's a great example. I mean, we each have different examples of what we prioritize in our life. I mean, obviously, and we're going to go into it a little bit later of like kind of the bigger things that we prioritize together. But like individually, I feel like there's a number of things. For me, you kind of said it. It's like, for me, I am a homebody, so I need the place that I live to be like my most comfortable spot.
That's understandable.
So I am willing to spend more on like rent. I'm willing to spend more on other things to like make sure that I feel comfortable in a house.
Because that's how you grew up.
Because that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I totally get that. And I grew up like that too. But Justice and I were just saying before we started recording, and we were just talking over this, like, for me, my priority would be, I'd save $500 to $1,000 and live across the street, just because it's like a huge apartment complex versus like a smaller one. But for you, it was really important for you to feel comfortable. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, we can sacrifice that type of thing.
Sacrificing living in a nicer
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I know.
Like,
it's the sacrifice of like, we could use that money for something else, but we're using it for right. And I agree.
Yes. And it's so easy to be selfish for me in that sense and be like, why would we spend an extra $1,000 when I could buy all these clothes?
Exactly.
I could dress this way. I could buy a new phone. Like, there's so many things that are like me. And it's just really cool to put on the humility of Christ and be like, A, it's not our money anyways. B, are we being smart with our money? C, are you sacrificing one another?
Yeah.
So it's cool. Sorry, I kind of went off on a rant. Do you have, okay, so you prioritize rent. Sorry. I'm just giving an example because like, obviously I wouldn't live somewhere nice too, but it's not my top. I'm not trying to live in a shack. Come on, people. But you know.
Yeah. No,
what else?
No, that's a legitimate thing. So like that, for me, it's that, obviously, you know, I think gym membership, like I will pay, like I remember we went to, where did we go? Absolute Recomp.
Yeah.
And we also went to like John Reed Fitness.
Yeah,
and
we tried some gyms.
It was like $50 or $60 just to like go there for a day pass. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, cause I want to do that.
I was like, this crackhead. What do you mean?
And I was like,
let's go to a nice
we have a
dinner.
gym membership somewhere else.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, no, I really want to do this. Or just things like, you know, going to Austin with my friends and, you know, traveling with friends, doing those types of things. Like even like going to the Grand Canyon, buying all of that equipment that I bought. I bought like so much equipment from REI that I probably will not use again.
Definitely not.
Until I go back to the Grand Canyon.
You're not going back.
I will be going back.
And you get your hair cut every 2 weeks.
Well, that's just like,
okay.
That's just, you don't want me looking ugly.
But I can cut your hair.
You can't cut my hair.
Oh, game on.
You cannot cut my hair.
Game on. We're going to do that later today.
One, you've never cut a man's hair. Two, you've never cut a black man's hair.
It's true.
So those are two things that you need prerequisites for.
Well, teach me how to do a little fade. And
I don't even know how to cut my own hair.
Oh, geez Louise. Okay. After we record
I tried to cut it during COVID and
I'm going on YouTube.
We're not going to show those pictures.
Okay, we're getting off track. So those are the things that you prioritize. Anything else you can think of?
Probably, but you can go ahead.
But it's fine. Okay, so like right now I'm not getting my nails done, but like there was a period of time where I got my fingernails done once a month and it was great. It was just a thing that I always did. That's like $45 right there. Sometimes I get my toes done, then it goes up to like $100. So I would love to do that. Coffee is very important to me, like going on coffee dates with girls, going to get coffee and walking is very important. And truthfully, guys, when I go to this one coffee shop, I spend $9 on a matcha. It's kind of insane, but it's important to me.
It's $9?
Yeah, sorry.
You need to stop going there.
No, it's so fun. And then sacrifice. And then like I just love getting new clothes. Don't say anything about the sacrifice.
I'll say something after. No, this brings up a good point that I will say. That's nothing to do with what you just said, but I'll say it when you're done.
Okay, I'm moving on now. So you can say it if you need to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would also caveat all this with like common sense of like, you know, there's only so like when we're talking about sacrifice. If I'm like saying I want to spend our whole paycheck on like a new car or not even a new car, I want to spend all our money. Like that's just not wise. And I think that's the point when like, you know, you should push back on me and be like, okay, like this is not helpful for both of us. So it's like we said before, having that open conversation of like, you know, it's sacrifice, but it's also like holding each other accountable to like what both of you want to do together and the dreams that you both have. And like, okay, like what you're saying right now is not going to keep us on track for what we've set out to do later on, whether it's like long-term, like a house, things like that.
For sure. Because also we're coming from the point of view where we're very young in our 20s. We just started working. So we're coming from the point of view where we do have to be smart with money. Like we're not getting in millions of dollars a month and doesn't matter about money.
$1 million a month. That's a lot of
That'd
money.
be sick. 12 million a year, please. But so it's really cool to be able to talk about this. But there is another conversation for like the opposite end of the spectrum. When you have so much money, you still have to be financially responsible with it.
Exactly.
Of like, are you honoring the Lord with your money? But anyways, we're on the other end of like young in our 20s, figuring it out, making a comfortable living, and just like how do we do that responsibly?
Yep.
So things do start to get a little hairy when you're talking about like splitting up money, like we're talking about people who have 2 different bank accounts, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if we had 2 different bank accounts, full transparency, I make a lot less than Justus. It's like not even comparable how much of a difference we make in a paycheck. And so therefore, if we were to split up money, how would you do that? Who buys groceries?
Yeah.
And then most people are like, well, obviously the guy does because he makes more money. And it's like, okay, well, is that quote unquote fair? I understand life's not fair, but like still, like I'm eating those groceries too. And if we have a split bank account, that doesn't really make sense.
It just gets difficult of like, do you
Yeah.
split it evenly? Do you split it by, how much you make versus how much
Right.
I make? And
Right.
just like, I don't know. For me, it just doesn't feel like that's important to talk. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there'd be a lot of tension and conflict coming
Yeah.
from that. That's unnecessary.
Yeah. And we know one another to where like I would feel greedy with my money then.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, even though you buy all of our groceries, I'm not going to buy dinner tonight because I want to keep this money because I make less than you and I'm going to spend
Yeah.
it on something else I want.
Exactly.
So I feel like it's just not best for you and I. And
Yeah.
we know that. And so we've come into it in a completely different manner
Exactly.
of combined bank accounts.
Yeah. So that kind of we kind of went on tangents, but basically,
That's what this is for.
the first portion of what we talked about was, we get our beliefs of finances from the Bible. The second point that we kind of alluded to throughout the conversation earlier was our parents and
our
our
upbringing. Mm-hmm.
So for me, my dad was the only one working my whole life. My mom stayed at home. So, I think there's some conversation and some like controversy around, the role, like gender roles
Mm-hmm.
of like a man and a woman in society today. I think that, the Bible calls men to be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you have to be the breadwinner. I know a lot of families who like the wife makes more than the husband, or the
Yeah.
wife works and the husband doesn't. But I think the best way to show, your love for your wife, like Christ loved the church, is to provide security and resources for your family. I feel like that's an innate way. I feel like all men feel like what drives them and what motivates them. So that's something that, how I want to serve Camryn is through that. And, growing up, my family, we were well off, and my parents took care of all my needs. So I never had to
Right.
worry about like, okay, are we eating today? Okay.
Right.
Where am I sleeping? Do I have clothes for school?
Yeah.
The one thing that like I was taught growing up was just the importance of money in this,
Mm-hmm.
and for the sense of like, okay, basically everything that I had to do, like everything that was outside of, the bare necessities of like school and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I had to pay for. So it was anything with my friends, anything like traveling that wasn't family related.
Are you talking about in college?
No, in high school too.
Did you have a job in high school?
No, I didn't have a job in high school.
So how did you get money to
I
do it?
didn't get money to do anything.
So then how would you like go out with your friends to the movie? We went out to the movies. Where'd you get that money from?
I think what did I do? Oh, I sold a lot of stuff around
You
the house.
did. Your parents would be like, if you sell this, you
I
get
was
the
trying
money.
to think. Yeah, I was
like blanking out for
I
a
sold a
second.
lot of stuff around the house.
Got it. I honestly did that too.
Yeah. And then I think I picked up like stuff like jobs like here and there. Not like I didn't have a consistent
Yeah.
job, but I did like one-off things.
Yeah.
And I just never really, outside of like hanging out with you, I never really like went out and everything.
Yeah.
And obviously like, I got like birthdays and stuff like that where I'd like save up money. But
Yeah.
in college, it was the same situation where like I got a stipend for football.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be for
'Cause
like
it was
books
your
and
job.
stuff. Yeah. And I had to decide like to use that money. Like, how do I use that money? Do I use it for Camryn when she visits? Do I pay for her flight? Do I do stuff with my friends? So
Yeah.
basically growing up, my parents taught me the importance of like, money just doesn't come falling out of the sky.
Right.
And ultimately, like, you have to be responsible for the things that you want in life. Like, if it's
Yeah.
important enough, you'll make time, you'll get a job, you'll do something
Yep.
for it. And if you don't do that stuff, then obviously it's not important enough for you
Yeah.
to get. So I feel like that's kind of really shaped my view on like, I don't think I'm more stingy than you, but I feel like that I have like a more rigid view on money to where I feel like, in part, maybe that's because like I feel like, as the leader of the household, I need to be in that role, but it's
Yeah.
like,
You're protective.
I feel more protective over
Yeah.
money because I understand like how much it took to
Right.
get it.
I wouldn't say you're stingy.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't. I think you're protective. I think that's the right word. I agree with you. Growing up, my parents were well off. We were all well off. I mean, we both went to a private school. We both went to college and didn't have to pay for it. You worked for that. You got a full ride to college, so you had no debt out of that. And then I was able to go to an out-of-state college, which I'm very, very grateful for. So both of us came into this marriage with no debt, no car debt, no school debt. So we're very, very blessed, and we
Very
understand that is not how the majority of people come into marriage. So don't think we're naive to that. But it was really cool because growing up, my mom, like yours, was working from home. What? Working from home? I'm not okay.
She's a stay-at-home mom.
That is a job.
Yeah.
So they were both stay-at-home moms. But it was really cool because growing up, my mom would always talk about, back in the day when dad was in school and I was the breadwinner of the family. Like, I worked so hard. I paid for our first house. I paid for our first car, like all this stuff. And it was cool to like see her light up in a way of like, it was really cool that I did that for our family. Like, I contributed in a huge way. And then once they started having kids, like my dad took over, and he is now the breadwinner. And I don't know. I love my parents. I think that they did an amazing job. Like growing up, I learned the importance of money, but like you said, I was never, oh my goodness, what am I going to eat tonight? And for my birthday, they would always ask me what I wanted, and I would list them a couple of things. And like, I don't know, my parents are the greatest, and I could see how a lot of people grow up like very bratty, but I think my parents were open and honest in conversation of like, the only reason we're able to do this is because like we work really hard, and like I was very determined from a young age. I've been working since I was 9. Like my dad has literally been working since he was 9 years old, just like cutting grass, doing fun things that he enjoyed. So very grateful for the way that they brought me up. And then both of our parents, we had conversations with them coming into marriage, because obviously both of us were going to be living a different lifestyle than we were brought up in right now. That, you know what I mean? Obviously. Duh. So I think that was really cool to have conversations with them about like, they're both financially responsible. Both of our families are. So having conversation with them of like, what do y'all suggest we do? How many savings accounts should we have? Like, it's been really cool to have guidance from them and from the church and just from community. And everything.
Yeah. And so like kind of to wrap up, like, we have our views where we get them from. So how do we put it into practice? So one thing that we do, and that we've done it twice because we've only been married for like a year, is that we write down our short-term and long-term goals every like 6 to 7 months. Within those goals, we do have our finance goals. So, like what we want for short-term savings, what we want long-term savings, what do we want for, like more fun money. Like we talk about all the things that we want. Like what are this past time we talked about, okay, this upcoming fall, this upcoming season, like what are the big things, the key purchase items that we want? Like, and then we're going to go and we're going to look at them and be like, okay, which ones can we, not can't do without, but like which ones do we really, really want, and which ones are like a nice to have. And so we do that and we put into practice every day, and it gives us a glimpse of each other of like, okay, what do we prioritize? What are the things that are important to us, and how can we get there?
It's so cool. We just talk about sacrifice, and I love that. Like we prioritize rent, we prioritize travel, food, we eat really healthy and organic. And that's what we feel is the most important to us, because we're young. So we want to travel. We don't have kids. We don't have animals. So we don't want to be like tied down by anything. So we make it happen. And I think that it's easy to see things from an outsider's point of view and be like, how do they afford to do all of that? But y'all don't see all of the things we say no to. You know what I mean? Like you're only seeing the things we say yes to.
Exactly.
So there's definitely times we're saying no.
I've said no to so many trips. Than we say yes.
So many nights, not nights out, but so many restaurants that our friends are going to, we say no. So many movies or weekend trips or week-long trips or going out or whatever. We definitely say no a lot because of how our priorities are laid out.
Exactly. And I feel like, that's the one thing. I mean, we've talked about food and the importance of health on this podcast all the time. So I think food is something that we prioritize, which if you think about, we probably spend 2 to 3 times more than the average person on food. One, because I just eat a lot, but also because of the type of food that we buy. And so that's something that is a huge thing. If you both aren't aligned on that, you would be like, what the heck? Why are we spending this much money on food when we can go to Walmart? We can go somewhere and spend like half as much. But it's like, no, we want like vitamins, supplements, all of these things that we prioritize for our health. That's something that I feel like is super, super important in our relationship that we both agree on. If we didn't, that would be a huge point of contention.
For sure. 100%. And like I don't know if you have anything else to add, but one final point that I have is, this is just such a freeing, humble, and amazing way to dream together. I think that it's really cool to just lay everything out and be like, okay, what are your dreams and what are your goals? What are mine? And how can we achieve them and be responsible for them and sacrifice for one another? I think that like serving and sacrifice is obviously what Jesus does for us every day, what he did on the cross. And it's just really cool that we get to like pay one another back in that regard.
No, I completely agree. And I think on that note, like, another point that we prioritize is giving. like tithe, but then also like giving generously above and beyond. And that's something that could potentially be a point of contention in relationships too, as well.
For sure.
Grow, like depending on how you grew up, depending on how you feel about giving, and if your heart is in that place yet to be able to give.
Right.
And it's something that we discuss about, like, okay, what percentage are we giving? Like, do we give more this time? Do we give less this time? Like, how are we thinking about it? And it's constantly having that communication, praying, and having those conversations of giving. But we feel like that is an important pillar to, our finances, as well as giving back to God, because obviously it's his before it's ours.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's all that I have.
Yeah.
Amazing
I think
work.
We're good.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope this was helpful. We hope it wasn't overwhelming, and we hope y'all don't think we're crazy.
Yeah.
But thank you guys again. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
See ya when we see ya.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.